Humanity's arrival in the galaxy was neither loud nor spectacular. It happened quietly, almost unnoticed by the more advanced species who had long dominated the stars. They had never thought twice about the planet nestled in the farthest corner of a relatively obscure solar system, home to a species that had only just begun to touch the edge of space travel. But that was about to change. The galactic community, a sprawling network of advanced civilizations, had been coasting along for millennia, their power and technological prowess unchallenged. Among these civilizations, the United Terran Empire was the most recent member, granted only provisional status in the Galactic Council. The members of the Council were united in their belief that humanity had no place among them, at least not yet. Their technology was primitive, their culture young, and still chaotic. They were just beginning to understand space travel, after all. How could such a species possibly challenge the established order? They thought humanity to be naive and inconsequential, dismissing the fledgling empire's requests for integration as childish ambition. Earth had barely sent its first fleet beyond its home system, and their most advanced technology was nothing more than a shadow of what the Council races had mastered long ago. The Terrans were nothing but a curiosity, a species that would take centuries, if not millennia, to reach the galactic stage. They could not fathom that humanity was already far beyond what they assumed. But something had changed unnoticed, beneath the surface. Humanity had not simply started to explore the stars, they had begun to conquer them in a way that no one could have predicted. A series of groundbreaking discoveries had accelerated their technological development, shifting the balance of power in ways that no one had expected. Their scientists, engineers, and visionaries had unlocked the secrets of artificial intelligence, fusion energy, and hyperspeed propulsion, all at an astonishing pace. What had once been rudimentary theories and dreams had become reality in a matter of decades. The first major demonstration of humanity's newfound power came when an alien warlord, the Zorthax, sought to take over a small, peaceful human colony. The Zorthax had been known for their ruthless campaigns, their ability to subdue entire systems with ease, their technology far outstripping that of any human force. The warlords saw humanity as a ripe target for conquest, certain that the Terran defenses would be nothing more than a minor nuisance. The humans, however, had other plans. In what seemed like a foolhardy act of desperation, the Terran fleet mobilized. Zorthax's forces were far superior in both number and firepower, their warships towering over the fragile human vessels. The Terrans, outgunned and outnumbered, should have been wiped out in an instant. But humanity had something the Zorthax did not expect: ingenuity. Using a series of old, barely functional warships, humanity deployed an experimental weapon. The weapon, an advanced form of energy manipulation, was designed not for destruction but for disruption. It generated a localized energy field so intense that it could overload the electrical systems of enemy ships, short-circuiting their weaponry and shields. What was meant to be a defensive measure turned into an unprecedented offensive strike. The Zorthax's mighty warships, which had once dominated entire systems, were suddenly rendered powerless, their weapons failing, their shields flickering out of existence. The humans, with their crude but effective weapons, engaged the alien fleet in ways no one had anticipated. Within hours, the once mighty Zorthax forces were in retreat, their ships useless against the human technology that had seemed so primitive mere days before. News of the Terran victory spread quickly through the galaxy, but it was met with disbelief. No one could understand how a species so young, so primitive by comparison, had turned the tide of a battle that was supposed to be theirs for the taking. The Council races began to whisper amongst themselves, questioning the human capabilities, wondering if this victory was a fluke or if something more was at play. The next few years saw humanity make rapid strides in technological development. Each victory, no matter how small, seemed to breed more innovation, more ambition. Earth scientists began to unravel the secrets of galactic technologies that had long been thought of as inaccessible. They unlocked methods of faster-than-light travel that bypassed conventional propulsion, learned to harness the energy of entire stars, and designed weaponry that could cut through the strongest shields with ease. The galaxy, once a place where powerful civilizations had fought for dominance and control, was suddenly looking at a new contender: humanity. The older civilizations, confident in their superiority, continued to underestimate the Terrans. They laughed at the idea of a species that could compete on their level, dismissing their achievements as mere luck. The humans had won one battle, but that was no guarantee of their future success. Even the most advanced races assumed that humanity would fall back into obscurity as quickly as it had risen. But humanity did not fall back. Instead, they surged forward, learning faster, adapting quicker than any species before them. Their technological leaps left the galactic powers scrambling to catch up. Soon, the once laughable humans were occupying strategic positions across the galaxy, their ships moving across the stars with military precision. Every engagement, every new encounter with alien forces, was a reminder that humanity was not the weakling they had once believed them to be. The Terrans, now growing bolder, sent diplomats to the Galactic Council to demand full membership, to be recognized not as novices, but as equals. The Council, though hesitant, had no choice but to acknowledge the power of humanity. The once dismissed species now stood before them, a force that could no longer be ignored. But even as the humans made their way into the halls of galactic power, the rest of the galaxy was only beginning to understand the true potential of Earth's people. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that humanity had yet to reveal its greatest weapon. The technology that had brought them to the forefront of the galaxy was impressive, yes, but it was their greatest strength, their most untapped resource, that would ultimately seal their place among the stars. Humanity's true weapon was not their advanced technology, their impressive weaponry, or even their unmatched speed in space travel. No, it was something much more profound, something no alien species could possibly comprehend. They were a species forged in adversity, shaped by countless generations of struggle, both within and beyond their planet. Humanity had survived war, famine, and catastrophe, and each trial had only made them stronger. The alien races that surrounded them had long since achieved technological dominance, but they had lost something crucial in the process: the drive to push forward when all seemed lost, the unquenchable thirst to overcome impossible odds. In a galaxy where survival often meant submitting to power, humanity stood apart. They would never bow to another species, never bend to the will of others. They would rise no matter the cost. And in that rise, they would not just survive, they would dominate. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, and soon it would regret it. The War Council of the Galactic Dominion barely acknowledged the reports of humanity's first victory. A minor skirmish. An anomaly. The battle against the Zorthax was nothing more than a statistical error, they claimed. The idea that a species as young as humanity could pose a genuine threat was laughable. The Dominion had ruled the stars for centuries, and no upstart civilization would change that. The Dominion's fleets were unmatched, their technology centuries ahead of most species in the galaxy. Their empires stretched across thousands of systems, and they had crushed countless rebellions without effort. To them, humanity was just another minor player, another species that would be subjugated or wiped out when the time came. The council members who had begun whispering concerns were dismissed as cowards. And yet, reports continued to trickle in. Strange encounters with Terran ships. Skirmishes that ended in humiliating losses for forces that should have been invincible. Entire fleets disabled, their weapon systems fried before a single shot could be fired. A growing number of Dominion officers began to express concern, but their warnings were ignored. The first full-scale invasion was planned with absolute confidence. The Dominion would send an overwhelming force, an armada large enough to burn entire planetary systems to ash. Humanity's fleets would be crushed in a single strike, and the threat would be erased before it could grow further. The Dominion did not waste time on negotiations. When a species refused to submit, they were annihilated. The invasion force arrived at the edge of Terran space, expecting an easy victory. Thousands of Dominion warships emerged from hyperspace, each one a marvel of engineering and destruction. Weapons powered up, targeting systems locked onto their first wave of planetary defenses. The order was given to fire. Nothing happened. Across the fleet, control systems failed simultaneously. Power flickered, shields collapsed, engines stalled. Pilots and officers scrambled to regain control, but it was already too late. Humanity had been waiting for them. From the darkness of space, Terran warships emerged, silent, precise, predatory. Unlike the cumbersome Dominion vessels, these ships moved with terrifying speed, executing maneuvers impossible under normal physics. Their weapons unleashed devastating bursts of energy that shattered Dominion hulls like brittle glass. It wasn't just a battle. It was a slaughter. The Dominion's greatest fleet, an armada designed to overwhelm entire civilizations, was obliterated in minutes. Warships that had once enforced galactic law with absolute authority now burned in the void, their wreckage scattered across the battlefield. Survivors, if they could be called that, drifted helplessly, their communications jammed, their engines disabled. The few ships that managed to retreat brought back stories that the Dominion refused to believe. They spoke of weapons that bypassed shields entirely, of electronic warfare so advanced that Dominion systems were compromised before a shot was even fired. They described Terran ships that moved in ways no known physics should allow, warships that functioned less like traditional vessels and more like living weapons of destruction. Fear began to spread. The Dominion's ruling council convened in emergency sessions, analyzing every fragment of data they could recover. They still could not comprehend how humanity had advanced so quickly, how their fleets had evolved from primitive designs to apex war machines in such a short time. But the truth was undeniable. Humanity was no longer a minor species clawing its way into the stars. They had become something else entirely, an entity that defied every rule of war the galaxy had known. The Dominion, despite its arrogance, was not foolish. They knew what had to be done. A new fleet was assembled, larger than the last, commanded by the greatest tacticians in the Empire. Every advantage would be accounted for, every technological weakness compensated. If the Terrans had superior electronic warfare, the Dominion would deploy countermeasures. If their ships were faster, they would overwhelm them with sheer numbers. If humanity had truly become powerful, then the Dominion would bring the full weight of its empire upon them. The second battle began with a calculated strategy. The Dominion's forces split into multiple formations, ensuring no single system could be disrupted at once. Countermeasures were deployed before contact, shutting down external interference. The Dominion's warships came armed with the most devastating firepower their scientists had ever created. This time, they would not be caught off guard. And yet, it changed nothing. The moment the battle began, it was clear that humanity had evolved even further. Their ships adapted in real time, responding to the Dominion's countermeasures as if they had anticipated them in advance. The war machines of Earth moved with inhuman precision, as if they were controlled by something beyond the limits of organic intelligence. Then the real horror began. The Dominion expected destruction. They expected combat. What they had not expected was for their ships to simply stop. Without warning, entire squadrons lost control, their systems overtaken in an instant. Weapons powered down. Communications fell silent. Engines ceased functioning. It was as if the very fabric of war had been rewritten in real time. And then, the final blow came. The Terrans did not fire upon them. They did not destroy the helpless vessels floating in space. Instead, they did something far worse. They forced the Dominion warships to turn on each other. One by one, Dominion ships opened fire, not on the humans, but on their own allies. Entire formations collapsed into chaos as officers screamed for control of their vessels, only to find themselves trapped inside their own personal nightmares. The greatest fleet the Dominion had ever assembled was reduced to infighting, forced into self-destruction without the enemy ever needing to fire a shot. By the time the battle ended, there was nothing left. No glorious last stand, no desperate counterattack. Just silence. The Dominion's mightiest warriors, their most advanced warships, lay in ruin. The few survivors who managed to escape were left with a terrifying realization: humanity had not just surpassed them in technology. They had become something else entirely. Something beyond war. When the news reached the highest echelons of the Dominion, panic set in. Leaders who had once mocked humanity now met in secret, their voices hushed with fear. They had ruled the galaxy for centuries, unchallenged, unshaken. And now, for the first time, they felt true dread. Because they understood what the Terrans had become. A force that did not conquer with brute strength, but with absolute, undeniable superiority. A force that did not need to fight because they had already won before a single shot was fired. Humanity had not just evolved. They had ascended. And the galaxy would never be the same. The Dominion's defeat sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Every species, every government, every warlord who had once dismissed humanity now scrambled to reassess their place in the universe. Some sought alliances, desperate to secure favor with the new power rising among the stars. Others retreated into isolation, hoping to avoid drawing humanity's attention. A few, still unwilling to accept reality, began preparing for war, convinced that humanity's victories were a fluke that could be undone. But no one, not even the most advanced civilizations, truly understood what they were dealing with. For all their technology, all their military might, the real reason for humanity's dominance lay in something far more fundamental, something no other species had. The war-torn history of Earth had forged them into survivors. For millennia, humanity had endured conflicts that pushed them to the brink of annihilation, only to rise stronger each time. They had fought wars not just with weapons, but with minds, with adaptability, with an unbreakable will to overcome impossible odds. Every era of their existence had been a test of survival, and they had passed every one. The Dominion had been the most powerful empire in the galaxy, but they had never faced extinction. They had never fought a war they truly feared losing. Humanity had, and that made all the difference. When the Dominion fell, the remaining galactic powers had a choice: negotiate or resist. Some chose wisely. Others did not. The Velthari Confederacy, an alliance of wealthy, highly advanced species, believed they could outthink humanity. They assumed that diplomacy, economic pressure, and political maneuvering would keep the Terrans in check. But they failed to understand a simple truth: humanity did not play by their rules. The Velthari attempted to use trade embargoes, resource blockades, and intelligence operations to weaken humanity's grip on the galactic economy. They funded insurrections in human-controlled territories, believing that civil unrest would slow the Terran advance. They infiltrated human systems, planting spies and saboteurs to disrupt military operations. None of it worked. Humanity didn't react like other species. They didn't panic, didn't falter under pressure. They adapted. Faster than anyone thought possible, they developed countermeasures that turned every act of sabotage into an opportunity. The spies the Velthari sent disappeared, only to re-emerge as double agents, feeding false intelligence back to their masters. The insurrections they funded were crushed before they could even gain momentum. Then, in a single night, the Velthari economy collapsed. No one knew how it happened. One moment, the Confederacy was one of the wealthiest alliances in the galaxy. The next, their entire financial system imploded. Markets crashed, trade routes shut down, resource shipments vanished. It was as if humanity had reached into the very foundation of their civilization and torn it apart without firing a single shot. The Velthari, once the undisputed masters of economic warfare, had been undone by an enemy they had never even considered a threat. Other civilizations fared no better. The Kryn hierarchy, a warrior species that prided itself on brute strength, believed that humanity's victories had been based purely on technology. They convinced themselves that if they could close the gap in firepower, they could challenge the Terrans in open combat. They spent years studying human weaponry, replicating their designs, improving their ships. When they were ready, they launched an invasion against a human-controlled system, certain that they could finally match Terran forces in battle. Their fleets never returned. The Kryn's best warriors, their most experienced strategists, all vanished in the void. No distress signals, no survivors, no wreckage. Just silence. It wasn't until weeks later that the galaxy learned the truth. A single transmission was leaked, a brief, grainy recording recovered from the Kryn fleet's last moments. In it, Kryn warships could be seen firing upon one another, their formations collapsing into chaos. Their targeting systems had been overridden. Their own weapons had been turned against them. The Kryn, once the most feared warriors in the galaxy, had been forced to destroy themselves. It became clear that humanity's victories were not just about technology. The galaxy had always assumed that power came from superior weapons, superior fleets, superior numbers. But humanity had rewritten the rules of warfare entirely. Their true weapon was not their technology, but their ability to think in ways no other species could predict. They did not rely on brute force. They dismantled their enemies before the first shot was fired. They turned every strength into a weakness, every strategy into a liability. And worst of all, humanity had no pattern, no doctrine, no predictable methods. They did not wage war like an empire seeking conquest, nor did they operate like a militaristic species seeking glory. Every battle, every engagement was different. To fight them was to fight something that had already adapted to the outcome before it began. The remaining galactic powers understood what the Dominion had failed to see. This was not just another rising empire. This was not a species that could be contained through treaties, threats, or force. This was something new, something terrifying. And it was only the beginning. The galaxy had changed. What was once a collection of empires, alliances, and warlords had been reshaped by a single undeniable truth. Humanity had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same. Every species, every government, every military force had been forced to confront the reality that their centuries of dominance meant nothing in the face of an opponent that refused to abide by the rules of war, politics, or power. Those who had resisted had been crushed, not through overwhelming firepower, but through an absolute mastery of conflict itself. Armadas had been turned against themselves, economies had collapsed overnight, and entire civilizations had been dismantled before they even realized they were at war. Even those who had sought to avoid confrontation had not been spared. The once great Dominion, now nothing more than a cautionary tale, had become a symbol of what happened to those who underestimated humanity. The Velthari Confederacy had been reduced to economic ruin, the Kryn hierarchy shattered from within. Dozens of lesser empires had vanished in the span of years, absorbed, neutralized, or rendered irrelevant. The galactic order, once thought to be eternal, had been rewritten. But despite all of this, no one could claim to understand what humanity truly wanted. Conquest was the natural assumption, but the Terrans did not behave like conquerors. They did not seize territory for the sake of expansion, nor did they impose their rule upon others. They took what they needed, destroyed what opposed them, and then moved forward, always advancing, never looking back. The Galactic Council, once the most powerful governing body in known space, was in disarray. The remaining civilizations gathered in desperate meetings, trying to make sense of the new reality. Some called for submission, believing that the only path to survival was to accept humanity's dominance and hope for mercy. Others advocated resistance, convinced that there had to be some way to stop them before it was too late. But even as they debated, the truth became clear. Humanity was already beyond their reach. No spies could infiltrate their ranks. No sabotage could slow their progress. Every strategy, every deception, every desperate attempt to find a weakness was anticipated and countered before it could even begin. Then came the moment that changed everything. Without warning, humanity sent a single transmission to every major power in the galaxy. No threats, no demands, just a simple message. The war is over. You lost. There was no declaration of conquest, no announcement of a new empire rising from the ashes of the old. Just a statement of fact. And then, silence. The message sent a wave of confusion and fear through the galaxy. Some believed it was a warning, a sign that humanity would soon make its final move. Others saw it as a declaration of dominance, a way to instill terror without lifting a finger. But as time passed, something strange happened. Humanity did not invade. They did not establish an empire, did not impose their rule over the remnants of the old galactic powers. Instead, they simply continued forward. Their fleets moved deeper into uncharted space, beyond the borders of any known civilization. The core worlds of the fallen Dominion, the shattered remains of the Kryn, the ruins of the Velthari trade networks, none of it was claimed. Humanity had no interest in ruling over the remnants of the old order. They had already moved beyond it. For the first time in galactic history, a species had not just won a war, but had rendered war itself meaningless. No empire could rise to challenge them, no resistance could hope to succeed. The very concept of military dominance had been erased, not through destruction, but through the sheer inevitability of humanity's victory. The galaxy was left with only one certainty: humanity was not interested in conquest. They were searching for something greater. What that was, no one could say. Some believed they sought knowledge. Others believed they were preparing for something far beyond the scope of any known civilization. But one thing was clear: whatever humanity was looking for, they would find it. And when they did, the galaxy would never be the same again.